All right, we will call the meeting to order. Jen, will you take roll, please?
Commissioner Corbin?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Waldner?
Here.
Commissioner Abraham?
Here.
Mayor Lindsay?
Here. You have attached the minutes from December 8th.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You have before you tonight's agenda.
I would like to, Your Honor, remove items 1 and 2 from appearances, as those, the roads were a little challenging, and so we're gonna move that presentation and the acknowledgement of that report till next week. That's all right?
Okay. Do we have a motion as amended?
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You have attached the November building permit report.
Make a motion, we approve the November building permit as presented.
Okay, and
Second.
We're acknowledging this one, so.
Or
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Old business, 5:35. We'll go ahead and start it a little early, and if someone else comes in and that. Hearing on the proposed resolution, number 2014-25, necessity for sidewalk improvement. Chad, do you want to speak to this?
Sure, I can make a few comments. Thank you, Your Honor. The item on the agenda is a hearing on the proposed sidewalk resolution of necessity for 2015. If I may just give a little bit of a brief background of the process. About in 1996, there was a comprehensive plan developed that identified some priorities for installing sidewalks throughout town. There were 3 different priority categories. In those different categories, there were different routes that were recommended, and also there was areas around schools that were recommended in those 3 different categories. And since about 2004, the Sidewalk Committee would take up the issue of making recommendations to the City Commission for areas to install sidewalks that they would recommend to the City Commission. And then since 2004, they've been doing that. When those routes are selected, the city incurs the cost for the corners and puts in the ramps to make those ADA ramps since that time. For this particular year, the Sidewalk Committee has made recommendations for 6 different areas. 3 of them are routes, like had been done in the past. And it is 11th Street from Maplewood to Lincoln Avenue is one route that they had recommended that those sidewalks be installed by the landowners. Another route is 5th Street northwest from Union Avenue to Kansas Avenue, and then extending a little bit beyond Kansas Avenue, actually to Highland Avenue would be more accurate to say. And then the 3rd route would be Center Street from Lincoln Avenue east to Division Avenue. They recommended those 3 areas to continue like had been done in years past, but then they also recommended to start working in the areas around schools to try to get those areas filled in, so to speak, as had been recommended back in that 1996 plan. And so they recommended within all areas within 1 block of schools to install sidewalks as well. That was a priority 1 in the 96 comprehensive plan, was all 2 blocks within schools, but the committee just pared it down to 1 block at this time to move into that process slowly. In addition to that, as far as this area method, if you will, is that we are excluding any properties that from having to install sidewalk on consecutive years, because if you select an area, there may be cases where a landowner would have to install it on both on a corner lot, would install it on both sides, in consecutive years, or in the same year even. And so, those are removed from this process. And generally, and specifically, that's what's before you tonight is, if you pass this resolution, then we'll take the necessary steps to provide the notice to construct to the landowners, and then that's a process that's outlined in state statute, and David can speak to that if necessary later on. And then once that's passed, then it would be binding. The landowners would have until July 15th to put in the sidewalk, and if they choose not to, then we would have a contractor hired and ready to put that in before the end of next year.
And having attended the sidewalk committee in that, it's also they were recommending to fill in the empty spaces, because one party has sidewalk and the next one doesn't. And
Right.
so there are some holes as we go around the city in that, and it's to also complete the sidewalks and that, within the town. So, seeing people in the audience, is there anyone who had a question or wanted to speak?
Me? My name's Chip O'Malley, for the ones that don't know me. I own some property on 516 North Highland Avenue,
Mhm.
which basically the west side of the property is adjacent to Highway 81. And it's proposed to put a sidewalk on the north side of that property,
Yes.
which basically will end nowhere. It just,
I did look at that, and the sidewalk committee did too. That services that apartment complex and the people that live there, as well as the funeral home that's across the street. And having attended funerals there, and that, people walk on the grass when they park their cars along the curb. So
my
I
side of the
see,
property.
I see the need to continue that one as proposed.
Okay. And I guess my concern is, I don't know who's on the sidewalk committee, I've never been privy to that, but what kind of justification or reasoning did they make for
The safety. There are people that live in that apartment complex, and that it allows them to walk on the sidewalk instead of walking in the street, which
I've got a
people
huge
do.
parking lot, they don't walk on the sidewalk?
The people do when they go to attend the funerals across the street from that building.
Okay.
Or they walk on the grass, and then in the wintertime, because there's no sidewalk there, they're forced to walk in the street, so.
There is
And
a
it is-
sidewalk there now, an L-shaped
There's,
sidewalk.
there's a little corner,
Yep.
yes, yes. Mhm. But the little corner just comes up and brings you right back to the street. And so what this proposal does is it continues it west, so that as you walk west in that, you can go to the apartment complex, or you can go to the funeral home.
I believe Northwest Fifth Street was one of the priority areas this year, correct, Chad? That the sidewalk committee identified?
Correct. Northwest Fifth Street from Union Avenue to Highland.
Trying to make a consecutive route or whatever.
To
Fill in the
complete the
holes.
route.
Yeah, completed, I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying. Yeah, they started at Egan Avenue and extended installation to Union Avenue. And then in 2015, it's proposed to continue that
Mhm.
onto Highland Avenue.
We had a hand.
How far from the curb is the sidewalk supposed to be?
Typically in that, the sidewalk is 5 feet from the curb, but in the past, and with, consultation with the engineering office and that, it's not intended to take down trees and things if there's something else that can be worked out. And so that's why when you go around town and that, every sidewalk is not exactly 5 feet in. So depending on the property and that, there are some possibilities.
Mine won't be 5 feet in,
Mhm. Okay.
about 2 feet.
That I'd refer you to the, city engineer's office. Okay.
Because I got a row of trees there. And I've got a blue spruce that's about 60 feet high. And I don't think I should move it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, the intent is not to take down trees to make this happen and that, I was on the sidewalk committee from when Mayor Huner started it, right up until I moved into this chair, and I still attend the meetings even though I'm not considered to be a sidewalk committee member.
I I have another problem with, I'm gonna, if I have the sidewalk too far in, the teenagers are gonna be hanging on my trees, breaking branches off, because they're already harassing me for the last year. Now they throwing bottles on my driveway. Anybody got teenagers here around here?
Then, a situation like that, I'd recommend in that you call the police department
Yeah.
and, you know, make them aware.
They've been there a few times.
Okay?
Call them again.
Yeah, keep calling them.
As public safety
Keep calling
commissioner,
them.
that's a huge concern of mine, and absolutely, you call them again and again, and
At
they'll
2 or
keep
3,
coming.
2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, that's when they're out there harassing.
Yeah, they don't need to be doing that, so certainly call.
And south of you in that, there are a couple houses of college students that I'm aware of. So,
Excuse me, Ed,
Teenagers that are causing the problem.
is it?
can you identify your name and where your property is? Name and your,
Pardon?
can you identify your name and property for us? Just,
503 North Lance.
okay, thank you.
And the reason we ask that is because the microphone here is picking this up and it does replay for people that aren't at the meeting tonight. So,
So I'm saying if anybody got teenagers, you better wise them up. One of these days, I'm gonna wise them up.
okay.
A
Chip?
question on the sidewalk committee, do they
Yes.
hold meetings,
Yes,
open to the public and everything?
Yes.
It's advertised,
yes, yes.
and how often do they do that?
Just a couple times a year.
Okay.
Yeah, just a couple times a year is all they
In the
meet.
paper and it's open. Because I'm in the process of what you talked about before. You're gonna be doing my other side probably at sometime, the east side of my property.
In the future. Mm-hmm,
So, I mean, I'm looking at $7,000 for the sidewalk,
mm-hmm.
probably here in the next couple of years.
Yes.
We're Morgan and Deb Roney. We live at 1020 Northwest Fifth.
Uh-huh.
And so my question is, so all we have to do is put sidewalks in the front on the Northwest Fifth side. Otherwise, the other property runs on Kansas. We don't have to do that yet?
And that's what Chad was talking
That's what I
about, you know.
understand. So
We
we're-
try not to, you know, to make it so that people get hit, you know, 2 years in a row, you know. But if it works, you know, for you, if it works better and that for you to have them both done at the same time, you don't have to wait till the letter comes out. I mean, you can put it in whenever it works for
And
you.
then we could have someone come out and take a look at our property because of our trees and stuff to see where that would go.
Yes.
Chad, is that you?
Yes.
That would come out and take a look at it? And then one more
Yes.
question.
Hmm?
If by July, we can't get it done because the guys are all so busy, do we come back to you and just say we tried, or it might be August before we get it in, or September, or what happens?
Keep in contact with the engineering department, please.
So we're not really penalized, I mean, we're trying, but we
Yes.
just,
Right.
Yep. And that happened this year as well.
yeah.
You know, contractors got so busy, not all of them got done. I had some sidewalk that I wanted replaced this year, and it never happened.
Mhm.
So, so it'll be next year.
You should have a pretty good idea of cost. I mean, we'd like to kind of plan this, what it costs to put a sidewalk in.
It's probably running right now, depending on who's bidding, you know, every contractor's a little different, probably in the range of $21 a running foot or so. I would estimate that. The city will bid this and have a contractor bid all the sidewalk. And then in our contract, we'll tell him that as landowners accomplish it, if they choose to accomplish it on their own, we'll take it off his contract. So he'll give us a per unit price at that time, and I can tell you exactly what that would cost for our contractor, but we don't bid that typically until March or so, February, March timeframe. But using last year's bid and assuming it's just a small inflation increase, probably in that $21 to $23 a running foot.
Okay, our property says half of lot 8 and all of lot 9. What does that mean?
That's just your legal description, and those lots are platted, and those are recorded at the courthouse. What we
How
would,
wide are those?
every one's a little different, so what we would do is
Yeah,
we'd
they can
get-
be anywhere from 50 to 100 feet.
We
I'm trying to
would,
figure out
Right.
just exactly how wide
Yeah.
You
or
gotta go.
long it is.
Yeah.
We can look at that with you and look that up, and then we'll be able to help you give an estimate. I just don't have that, everybody's lot right now at this time in front of me.
It said, what did it say, 37.5 foot by 143?
Okay.
That's probably the half-width lot, probably.
Probably, because a lot of
That'd
times
make
they're
it
50
70.
feet.
Is that just labor?
That would be full installation. What I would say would be full installation. For a 50-foot lot, at 21, that's 1,050 for about 50 feet worth.
No, our neighbor's got a sidewalk starting into our property. I don't think that's 4 foot, what'd you say, 4'8"?
Right.
That's how wide the sidewalk's supposed to be, then 5 foot in from the curb.
Right, but it doesn't, their sidewalk that they had put in does not look like it's 4'8".
Is it appear to be like an older sidewalk from years ago, or something that
Well,
was,
I know it's been there for 25 years, because we've been in
Okay.
this house for 25 years.
Yeah.
Probably before this project started.
Yeah.
These specs.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, the sidewalk was there when we moved in, the sidewalk
So
was there.
it's, it's wider than some of the narrow ones you find in town, but it's not 4'8".
Mhm.
It's probably 36, 38 inches, I don't know.
We'd be happy to look over all those particulars with you and talk about
There were a lot of 36.
everybody's particular circumstance,
Can we hire a private contractor, or do we have to go to the
Yes.
city?
No.
No, you can,
You can do it
hire a
yourself
private
if you would
contractor.
like.
Yeah, I'm 62 years old,
Yeah.
I know what concrete.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, no, you can hire whoever you want, or do
Yes.
it yourself, or,
Right.
yeah.
We'd be planning a funeral, not for sidewalks.
Yeah.
We live close to the funeral home, so why not?
Yes. We had a question, hand go up over here.
I was just wondering, like, we'll have to do a retaining wall, a pretty good sized one. I live on, the corner of North Union and Fifth. So we'll have to do a pretty good, and I read somewhere in that thing you guys sent out about you guys
Yes.
reimburse. So how does that work, please?
You work with the engineer's office and that, and the city will pick up the difference between what it would cost for the running sidewalk and, whatever else needs to be done so the sidewalk can be put in. So, yes.
Okay,
So you work with the engineer's office and that, on that project?
okay, and then, like, once this passes or whatever, we'll get something in the mail that'll give us the name, I don't even know, of like the contractors and such that we could go through.
We have a list right here in the front office where, where you come in to pay the utility bill. Come to the next office, and that, in the finance office there, we have a list of contractors and that, and you're welcome to pick up a sheet and take it with you.
Perfect.
Uh-huh.
Ma'am, the other thing I would say too is, we come out and coordinate with everybody and not, I know you made the comment, you will need a retaining wall. Oftentimes, we look at it jointly and make a joint determination. There's wide right-of-ways on this, so there may be opportunities to avoid those costs by both the city and/or the landowner, it'd mainly be city, to just bank the slopes of the yards and such to avoid it, because as you can imagine, retaining walls add a significant amount of cost, and,
So we just come chat with you guys?
Right. and we'll coordinate with you and anybody who has different questions.
Okay.
And the gentleman here, I was gonna also mention, sorry, I should have mentioned it at the time, as far as being 2 feet, I provided this handout here to everybody. It kind of gives some of the preliminary and initial basics. I know there's a lot of information, so I don't expect you to fully take it all in at this point in time, but you can take it home and look at it. But on there, we do talk about some of these different standards, but as far as 2 foot, there would have to be a variance process where the sidewalk committee would have to look at that and take that under consideration. They make a recommendation, and then the commission would take that. The only thing I would caution you or ask you to maybe think about in the interim is this we try to keep it 5 feet from the back of the curb with significant feedback from the Public Works Department, because it's been their experience that if not this, concerns about snow removal, as you could imagine, and it's not just the current landowner, but it's down the line that has been, in their experience, perpetual challenges and created when they're rolling their snow up and such, so. But we understand there's trees and that this is a very challenging process, but we'll try to work with you as best we can through all of it.
And typically, the public right-of-way goes back approximately 21 feet behind the curb. And so in a number of cases in that, where there's trees, the sidewalk was put further in between the trees and the house. And that's, a number of them have been done that way, to be able to keep the trees and still, meet the requirements of having the sidewalk installed.
When you say 21, are you talking from the back of the curb?
From the back of the curb.
From the back of the curb.
With an 80-foot right-of-way, which I believe all the areas in this year's project have an 80-foot right-of-way from the back of the curb to the property line, it's approximately 21 feet. And then so, and this graph, this chart here shows that about that 16 feet, or the shaded, partially shaded green area, shows the area where landowners have an opportunity to fit in, if you will, their sidewalk. So.
And then earlier I saw a hand up over here.
Are building permits required?
No, building
No.
permits are, a sidewalk permit is required, but that's a no-fee permit.
Okay.
It just sort of shows us who the contractor is, what needs you may have as far as setting the line and the grade of the sidewalk, and just to help track progress, because we're dealing with, between this and the repair project, over 100 different landowners often, and so that's the case. And you can get those in the engineering office or in the finance office.
And once in a while, and that we'll have one where it has to go down, and that, the grade has to be determined in that so that it meets ADA compliance. And so that's, if you had something like that, where it's incline or declining, you want to work with the city engineer's office and that to make sure that the, proper ADA angle is met. So people on wheelchairs and that, aren't coming along and then all of a sudden taking a roller coaster ride. So,
Another question, I guess, is from the top of the curb, is there an elevation that the sidewalk needs to?
No, not typically.
So I can just
Nope.
work with the engineers,
Mhm.
because from the top of my curb, my dirt mounds up
Yeah.
pretty good.
Uh-huh.
And I would like to just shave that off so the water runs from the sidewalk to the curb instead of through my yard.
Mhm.
I have light poles on the corner and at the back alley of my property.
Mhm.
Does the city replace or lower the electric line for the light poles?
Again, work with the city engineer's office and that, and if there are things in that need to be done, they'll be in contact with Fred and the electric department.
Okay.
We have situations in that where there are electric boxes in the sidewalks, and I can think of at least one situation in that where they did go make some minor adjustments in that, so that as you're going down the sidewalk, the box is there, but it's a part of the sidewalk. Yes.
If you decide to let the city contractors put in the sidewalk, what are the payment options?
Jen, can you answer that question?
Payment options.
I can talk about it too. a
If,
little bit.
if the city puts it in.
Okay.
Typically, the process is that it's all outlined in state statutes, so we're required to follow that, but the landowner would have the option to allow the city to put that in, and then we would recoup those costs over time. If it goes to an assessment process, there is a city policy that requires a 20% administrative fee for the notices in the paper and all those different things for administrating. And then that goes back before the commission, and the commission gets to decide. It's typically 5 years, and then prime interest rate plus 3% or so. I think that's what has been selected in the past, and it's over 5 years.
That's if it's assessed to your taxes.
Correct, and then, yeah, that's generally, but there'll be several different notices and correspondence, some official, some of us just coordinating with you before that all comes to pass.
Does
Yes.
Does your property taxes go up?
I don't believe so. I mean, you could check with Shirley Epson at the courthouse, but I'm almost certain that they don't.
Okay.
But
Well, unless it's assessed. The assessed portion would
Well,
go
right,
up.
yeah.
Unless you have it build, this, if you have the city install your sidewalk, then the repayment portion would increase your, would come on your tax bill. It wouldn't increase your taxes,
Yeah.
but your percentage for that, your payment for that year
Until
would.
sidewalk is paid.
Yep.
We had a question over here.
Yep. I'm Carrie Billauer, and I live at 324 North Blanche. So I have several issues. Coming 5 feet from my curb
Mhm.
would be in a line of 3 trees.
Mhm.
One being ginormous, I don't know if it's a maple.
Maple.
It is,
But it's
yep.
as tall as my house.
Mhm.
First of all, I would never want to cut that down. So if you go on the other side of the trees, you're looking at 3 feet from my backyard, which there are hedges.
Mhm.
So that'd be 3 feet from that. And then like 3 to 5 feet from the side of my house.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I could literally hand people coffee as they
Yep.
walk by. I would have huge safety concerns as well as privacy. I mean, there would be no privacy because there's really no way to put up a privacy fence because the driveway's right in the middle as
Mhm.
well. So, I mean, I would have no privacy at all in the backyard.
I did look at yours and that today.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the property that adjoins you to the east and that, it could go right straight west and that, and just be on the inside of the tree. And that's what,
Right.
and that is within the city's, right-of-way space.
My
Granted,
concern would be,
granted, it is close to your house, but then we have a number of other homes in town that are exactly the same way.
then what would the solution be? I mean, where they could stand right there on the sidewalk and look right at my kitchen and my dining room. I mean, right there.
And yours isn't the only house that is built close right up to the property line, either, right up to the city right away. So,
So
but
it's-
yours also is right in front of a school, and so it is a safety area. And it is, an area that the,
The school's on
safe
the other
routes.
side of the street,
Understood.
And the bus stops on the other side of the street, not on my
Understood,
side.
understood. But the neighbors on both sides of you do have the sidewalk and come right up, along there as well.
Mhm.
So,
Well, can I go on the other side of the trees? I mean, then
You-
you'd be way closer.
on the other side of the tree, you don't even have room for 2 feet, because the roots come right up almost to the curb.
But that's my other issue. If I do put in sidewalks, how many times am I gonna have to repair because of the roots of the trees? That would be good.
That's something where you have to work with your contractor, and oftentimes in that, if they're dealing with something like that, if they put in, basically in that, your sidewalk goes in higher with more sand underneath it, and then you put a little dirt on either side, so the roots have room to move, and that's how you lengthen out the time. And that tree is fully grown, so if you get that sidewalk, about 4 inches or so above it, the chances of the roots damaging in that are gonna be pretty slim, because that tree is fully mature.
And we've worked with others like,
So-
like that, where we've talked with both the city park arborists and private ones who have given us advice on that type of a situation where if the roots are terminated, if you are unable to go above, like the mayor described, you can terminate the roots in a proper way such that it won't injure the tree, and it's a straight cut rather than just digging them out, ripping them out, where you expose them and then you just literally, it's like sawing off a limb, but you just do it in the root below the ground, and then add the extra gravel and such, and it's the best solution in an area where there's not a lot of good solutions.
That maple tree in the house south of you was put in at the same time as the one you have. And they did that, I believe, this last year. Solved the problem, saved the tree, no difficulties, so.
But privacy would be a big issue.
Sure.
too. And like, we do have a lot of kids in the neighborhood that walk by, I mean, you can see that. 'Cause I live at 8. I mean, I would just prefer them not 3 to 5 feet from my home.
And we prefer them to be on a sidewalk and not in the street. And that's a safety issue that we have to deal with.
Carrie, I'll just throw out, the the privacy part and the kids walking by, I mean, you know, where I live on Washington, I had DSU students walking by all the time, and granted, these are other students, but, you know, and they're just walking.
No, and I
You know.
understand that, Mike, and I appreciate that, but this is, I would have I mean, there's
Yeah,
no side yard, no front yard, no backyard now, where I could, you know, have supper with the kids, or have the kids out playing, or, I mean, there would just be no privacy.
Well, you have a nice backyard on the south side of the hedge.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's where the sidewalk's gonna be, right?
No,
There.
no. Your hedge, this would be on the north side of the hedge.
Yeah, but,
And then you've got the
From-
privacy hedge, and then you've got your backyard.
right, but 3 feet from my hedge.
Right, yep.
And then there's the driveway, so then you can see
Mhm.
right
Mhm.
there. So, I mean, there's really nothing.
Other comments? Yes, sir.
Can I do the site prep work myself? Just have a private contractor pour and finish it?
Mhm. Yeah, and the guidelines are online, aren't they?
Right, yeah, we have
Guidelines are online, you
instructional
know, that
standards.
says, you know, what it has to be and a minimum of 3 inches of sand underneath the concrete. And
Yeah, 4
so
inches.
all the information's there.
The only other comment I'll throw in, Mayor, is just kind of for the benefit of people here and people listening as well, is that this is an annual thing. It's something that the city has done. I've been through it 3 times now. Nick's been through it 6, maybe. And, you know, granted, there's, like Chad said, you know, it's not an easy project. If it was easy, we'd, as the city, would just run around and put them in everywhere and it'd be done. We do have ordinances in place where, you know, as people build buildings and houses, along with that comes a sidewalk. And those type of things just didn't happen 40, 50 years ago. And so this commission, prior years, in '96, you say, is when it started, and that was part of the comprehensive plan of our community, is to put in these sidewalks as we can afford it, certainly on the city side as well, every year. And so this is all part of that process. And I encourage you, if you, as Dick Erickson, Commissioner Erickson used to always say, if you'd like, we're always looking for people on the sidewalk committee.
And many other committees.
As well as other committees, so, you know, to help make those decisions. I think, Chip, you had mentioned, you know, how do they come up with those decisions and things, and I do know those people on that particular committee work very hard. They walk this town, they go through it, they drive it, a lot of times with their own gas and their own vehicle, and, you know, maybe they're on their bike and pedaling the town, but, that's how they come up with it. Obviously, they also have a plan, you know, building out from the schools and things as well, but, those committees, that's where a lot of that work happens.
Other comments, questions?
The city commits money for this as well. We've done
We budget for it every year.
$25,000 a year.
Actually, it's.
It's
40?
40.
Or is it
40?
I
40?
can't remember, no, I think it's 40.
50 next year.
It's 50 next year.
Yeah.
So,
Because and what the commission is talking about is at the corners, on the areas where the routes are selected, there's ADA ramps installed at those corners.
So is that gonna be done before the sidewalks put in?
We have a process, typically, it just depends on the contractor, how he wants to do that. If the ramps come first, sometimes that happens, and then the landowners would tie into them with their contractors, or if the landowners are going first, then we'll coordinate the grades and slopes to tie into the ramps appropriately to meet those ADA standards as well. But those all cost money, and that's where whether it's $40,000 to $50,000 annually that it costs, because those corners are expensive.
So basically, my existing sidewalk will be torn out then?
That small L there.
The small
that's
L,
correct.
maybe not next year, but if not, in one of the years coming, yes, in that. So, but again, work with the engineer's office and that, and they'll tell you, how long an ADA is and where your new sidewalk would
So I'm
start.
gonna have to replace part of the L, so.
Well, that would be all
chances-
city.
That would be the city.
Right.
The city will take,
Corners are the cities.
yeah, the city will take care of the corner.
Correct.
Yeah, so
my
work,
sidewalk, but how am I gonna know, or my contractor's gonna know where that sidewalk's gonna be
that's,
the right height to where you're gonna put in a new L?
We will be talking with your contractor,
Mhm.
or you, or private landowner,
Yeah.
so we know how to come into that with the appropriate grades, so that all these grades are met.
So when I get a bid, I go from where that L is west.
Right.
yes, yeah. Or if that L is too close and the handicap ramp needs to be further, you may even start your sidewalk further west. Do you see what I mean?
And how will I know that?
That's where the engineer's office will come out and they'll show you, this is how long the ADA ramp needs to be, and so you'll start from here, and then when they come in to put in the ramp, they'll complete it from there. And that's what we budget for, is we take care of the corners.
The only thing that would be different is in this, this new concept of the areas around the schools. At all those locations, we're not putting in the ramps like we have been historically in the route selection areas. However, each of those corners will have access. That's the one thing we are going to make sure is that we'll have access to the road. It may be a full curb yet, but it will still have access. So there'll be no dead-end sidewalk installed.
Except on my west side.
Yes,
Okay.
Yep.
There won't be any sidewalk going out? to-
Probably not.
Okay.
similar to Mr. Jorgensen, a couple blocks up.
So then what about the alley that separates?
The city pays for the alleys.
The city pays for that part of the sidewalk. But the sidewalk will continue across the alley.
And there's a small piece on the east side of that alley that the church has to put in as well.
Other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to new business. Resolution number 2014-25, necessity for sidewalk improvement, 2015.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 2014-25, necessity for sidewalk improvement 2015.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 2, bid number 830, review and award bid for chemicals. Fred, do you want to address this?
Actually, I'm gonna turn it over to Chad, he took the bids.
Okay.
Sure. We did work with him.
Yeah, I can.
Thank you. And again, if you have any questions, please contact the city engineer's office.
Will do.
Thank you. Regarding the bids, bids were opened on December 10th at 10:30 last week. There were bids for the chemicals for the water treatment plant. The bid schedule's in the packet, and for each item, there was only one bidder, actually. And so these prices are slightly higher than last year, but it seems to be reasonable increases. And I don't know if there's any budget considerations as far as how they will impact the budget from Fred's perspective or not, but the item before you would be to award the bids to these respective bidders.
Okay, for the purpose of the minutes, and that, Jen, do you want us to handle each of these individually?
I believe we have in the past.
Okay.
We just need to name them all correctly though, right? I would make a motion to approve bid number 830 for lime from Pete Lean and Sons from Rapid City for $161 a ton. Liquid chlorine from Hawkins Inc. of Roseville, Minnesota for $48.50 per hundredweight. Carbon dioxide per ton for $289.41 from Air Liquid of Grand Prairie, Texas. Ferric chloride from Hawkins Inc. of Roseville, Minnesota for $5.44 a gallon. And fluosilicic acid from Hawkins Inc. of Roseville, Minnesota for $385.7 per gallon.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. First reading, ordinance number 1564, supplemental appropriations for 2014. And Jen, are you wanting to address that?
Sure. Thanks to the cancellation of the banner presentation, we've got an extra half hour to talk about supplemental budget, if you like.
Or not.
David's making faces. All right, to generate this document, I do go through the 2014 budget line item by line item. From there, I choose to supplement any line item that exceeds the budgeted expense by $1,000 or more for whatever reason, okay? Now, that is above and beyond what is required. However, I just think it's good practice for myself especially, for supervisors. Just kind of makes you toe the line about where your budget is at year to date, where you're gonna end up. Keeping in mind that even though we've only got 2 weeks left of 2014, we can code to fiscal year 2014 until about the beginning of February. Okay, so we've got a good 6 weeks or so before we're really truly done with 2014. This also aids, again, myself and supervisors also in the coming year's budget presentations. All right, before
And
we dig into this.
it's also because the budget was set 15 months ago.
That's right, and you're
You
gonna
know.
hear a couple comments in
Yes.
regards to that, okay? So, before we begin here, you're going to see numerous salary and wage line items here that are preceded with a reasoning of an additional biweekly payroll, and that's one of them right there. When we budgeted, when the new finance officer budgeted the 2014 payrolls back in July of 2013, I used 26, which is normally the norm. Every 6 to 7 years, we have 27 payroll. When you have a biweekly pay cycle, that's exactly what happened this year. So I budgeted for 26, unfortunately, there was 27. Numerous supplements here for an additional biweekly payroll, okay? You're also going to see numerous line items for insurance and work comp that are supplemented, and those are due to coding adjustments. In the past, my office has used a lot of formulas, they just kind of formulate things out. We've done a lot of work making these maybe a little more actuals and hitting departments a little bit better than just formulating a lot of those out. So you're gonna see some coding adjustments there. Utilities, lots of utility supplements, and that is thanks to moving the city accounts from our nice little pretty city utility rate that we used to have. With last year's electric rate ordinance, we moved that from a city rate into the respective commercial and/or industrial classifications. I realized some significant utility expenses of our own. And then lastly, you'll also see numerous supplements to previously approved use of reserves, which are similar to what Fred is going to be asking for here in just a few minutes tonight. You've already approved the use of the reserves, now we're just telling you exactly how much of that will be spent. All right, page 1. Let's go down to police. There are a couple police line items there. You'll see equipment and setup for SRO. Okay, we knew those were coming, that's the bottom line dollar amounts there. Contingency. I was pretty stingy last year in the use of my contingency dollars. You will remember that contingency is a line item that we budget in the general fund. This year for 2014, we budgeted $170,000. in contingency. I have chosen to use a lot of those funds to the tune of about $120,000 of that contingency this year, okay? So the police has some SRO expenses there. Fire department, you'll see a $18,250 supplement for volunteer retiree. When a volunteer fireman retires, their final check or their payout from their retirement fund is run through our payroll, so that the applicable taxes are paid correctly on that. Okay, so you'll see some supplements. They're supplemented, however, the source of revenue is the reimbursement, because it turns out to be a wash. Okay, but those line items will look, they're over by quite a bit. Airport, towards the bottom of the page there, airport. The airport in 2014 backed off on several of their normal operating line items, and we have found that they probably shouldn't have. So you're gonna see more airport there than we usually do. Flip to page 2 with me. Fuel oil for resale is, of course, their largest. We only budgeted $100,000 for the purchase of fuel this year, and we're gonna need about another $55,000. The offset there is the revenue. Our revenue is also over budget.
Sorry, revenue is what?
Our revenue is also over budget, meaning we've generated more revenue than we had budgeted for that.
He sold 50% more fuel than he figured on.
So it basically washes out even though it shows
It
up in
does.
here.
It does, okay?
Yeah, because it's all for sale, it's all.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, library had a few line items that were over budget for numerous reasons. You'll see their office supplies and then also their books. Remembering that there is a contribution that we get from the county, $12,000 this year, not quite enough to cover those. We've talked about those with Nancy. Okay, park and rec. Total park and recreation necessary supplements are about $51,000. Lots of odds and ends there. Unless you have questions, we'll just. Second cent. At the bottom of the page there, professional services. Do want to point out that you're going to see numerous professional services on this document too. Most of the time, Chad and I worked through this afternoon, those professional services are part of your project costs, with their lump sum and the improvement line item. He and I choose to carve those out. Until my auditors tell me I can't, it's nice to show those under professional services rather as part of the project, and then I also don't appreciate all of that out either.
Now, is any of this reimbursable when the project is done? Or no?
Depending on the project.
Depending on the project, okay.
This would be for the water
Highway
and sewer,
34.
Right,
Yeah.
both stretches, and then also Fourth Street. There's contracts that have been approved for those.
Page 3, water. You'll see a couple supplements there for the Clearwell collapse and the overtime, and also in some other current expense. Don't choke on the improvement project there. Nothing is budgeted there, okay, because this is the ongoing water treatment plant that we just are wrapping up out there. We don't budget any dollars for that, but the offset is the bond. And I did just recently close out that bond with First Bank and Trust, okay? So the offset there are the bond proceeds. Electric. Again, just pretty much operational, day-to-day operational. Some additional costs. Do note that the supplement to the cable wire is $2,000 due to the transformer that we bought for the LAIC building. The $2,000 is simply what the line item needs to be supplemented by. That is by no means the cost of the transformer that they put out there. Okay, that will hit yet this year. Sewer fund. Some reserve there. Community center, I worked hard with the community center late this afternoon. They also have a longer list than we normally like to see. And we'll work on some of those. Solid waste. Still need some more dollars in those gate fees. And then recycling. This is the first time this evening that you have seen this. This is first reading. We'll ask for first reading tonight. Ordinance can be changed, although I don't like to. Ordinances can be changed between first and second readings. So if you see anything, if anything comes up, we could manipulate some line items between now and 2 weeks from tonight. Would ask that you review this when you can and contact me with questions. Thanks to the supervisors who all sat down with me too and went line item by line item. Fred loved spending hours with me last week.
And I
So
did,
much appreciated.
I did sit in and
For
watch even
solid
though I
waste,
didn't bring
we did fix
popcorn.
that for this. That's the one that we forgot the year before. Like we forgot.
All right, any comments or questions?
Just a couple questions. Obviously, one item that hits us hard is the utilities. Our overage is significant on all departments, which is something we're trying to do, with the lights and those kinds of things. Just for clarification, probably for myself and but also for the public, this last year, this is a 27 pay period year, right? Next year will be a 26.
Correct.
So are we saying that the employees got 27 payroll checks this year?
They did.
And there will be 26 next year?
Correct. And like I said, it's every 6 or 7 years. When you pay bi-weekly,
understand.
it's every
Yeah, I
6 or
understand
7
that.
years. Yeah. So we'll be back to 26 for several years.
Thank you.
What else?
Now, since the utilities went up in each of the departments by the change that we made, does that show up as increased revenue on the electric department?
Certainly.
Okay.
Certainly.
So this 92,475, is that what it was short, or that's what it's long?
What page you on?
3. Where it starts at the top says utilities 24,000.
This is only expenditures, Nick. So this is
Only
only what's
expenditures,
short.
that's what I
Yep.
want, that's what I want clarified.
But remembering that we supplement with cash balance.
I see that.
So I'm only
Yes.
nitpicking out here what is over.
Yes.
You probably have just as many line items that are under. So
Got
that's
it.
why your supplement is cash balance.
Got it.
It's all gonna wash.
Mhm.
Should wash. We're watching a couple of them. They all should pretty much wash.
Okay, very good.
Are we covered at the library with Nancy? Remember Board of Regents is gonna quit their South Dakota Library Network? And I was
The
just-
last I heard,
I've been
they-
anticipating this expense from them and I haven't.
Okay? That's not here.
Yeah.
That's
No.
budgeted for
No.
next
That's
year.
Is
budgeted
that
for
next year?
November
Okay.
20.
Kelly, I
2015.
believe you've been
It's-
going
yeah.
to the library board and they're still looking. We're still looking
Yeah,
at
I think
atrium.
I think we've settled on what we're gonna do, but.
Okay.
What are you gonna do?
Called atrium, we're gonna go with. And there's some overlays of possible options too, but we're looking at what, most generally the libraries are, I think, if I remember right, our size are going with a program called atrium.
Yeah.
So, are you familiar with that, Mike?
I think that's what Nancy was talking about, yeah.
So no more network, they just do it on their own?
Ostensibly, yeah, there's some things you can do, but very limited. It's just going away.
Take something that's awesome, centralized, every library in the state's using it. and
Right.
Can share databases and then they throw it out,
Yep.
so.
And it may make it cheaper for the state because they eliminate it from their budget, but it doesn't make it cheaper for
Yeah.
everybody else in the,
Makes it
everybody
more-
else in the state.
Yeah, it makes it more expensive for every
Makes
other
it more expensive for
library.
the rest of the state because
Exactly.
And if I recall, there are some libraries that just won't be on a network. They won't be
Yeah.
able to do that. They
Yeah,
can't afford to.
They can't
Yeah.
afford it,
Yep.
yeah. It's too
It really
bad.
disables them, yeah.
Other
So
questions or
have to take that up
comments?
with their favorite region then, huh?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to, what are we doing? Acknowledging first reading of the ordinance 1564, the
We're approving
supplement.
first
We approve
reading.
it.
Yep.
First
Approve
reading.
the first reading, blah, 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 supplemental appropriations for 2014.
Yeah,
Second.
I'd second that, but not the blah, blah, blah.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank
Do-
you. Second reading 2 weeks from tonight. Let me know if you have any questions, comments,
Okay.
changes, okay? Thank you.
Declare as surplus property and appoint appraisers for scrap wire. And I had talked with Dennis earlier on this, and it's just basically wire from the projects that they've been working on that is ready to be parted with. So, and if we do it more often, we don't have to go necessarily through the bid process, and we get better prices by selling it on the open market. So we are declaring surplus property and appoint appraisers for the scrap wire we have in a dumpster.
Okay. I will make a motion to declare the scrap wire as surplus property and appoint Commissioner Corbin, Dennis Poppin, and Chad Comas as appraisers.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Authorize use of well treatment reserve for the new chlorinator because the old one has gone belly up. Now have Fred follow up on that.
You summarized that pretty well, Mr. Mayor. The old chlorinator, we had hopes that it would last a lot longer than it has. That's why it wasn't included in the upgrade portion of the plant, has died. So we are looking to use about $12,000 out of our well treatment reserves to purchase new chlorination equipment for the plant. Not totally dead, they're actually running it by hand. So it's caused us some overtime here the past week and a half. We'd like to do away with that, make sure we get the right equipment in there. So with your blessing, we'll spend about $12,000 out of that well treatment reserve and get the chlorinator here. Try to get it installed next week.
Is this related to the current quality of our water, the fact that it went out early, or how do you?
Well, no, the water didn't cause it. I think age actually caused this.
What's that?
The age caused this. I
Age.
mean, it actually.
Because you said you thought it would last a little longer.
Well, we were hoping it would last, another few years. And most, times
Or
you can
forever,
actually put
forever,
it.
which comes first.
Yeah, most of the time you can throw a repair kit in them and get them cleaned up and stuff, but this one's got to the point where it's just not gonna work anymore, so. To get us back to an automated process where it's actually fed on the amount of flow that we get, we need to actually get a new chlorinator. So we're gonna go with a different brand this time and try something new.
Do you want do we need the figure in there of 12,000?
Kindly up to 12, or what is your recommendation? Up
I think
to,
Up to 12.
Up
I think
to
we'll take care
12.
of it.
okay, please make
It,
that part of
it,
your motion.
it shouldn't go beyond that, but the exact penny isn't known at this moment.
So I would make a motion to authorize the use of well treatment reserve for the chlorinator up to $12,000.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You have attached some personnel adjustments.
I'll make a motion to approve personnel.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Seeing no announcements or other business, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, thank you, everyone.